everybody. Thanks for joining us at Training You Through the Eyes of Your Dog. I'm Jamie, and this is
Deborah Walker. So, Jamie, we are going to talk about training today about a variety of different things, but I really would like to know more about you. So, why don't we tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Okay. Well, a little bit about me is I started working with animals in about 2015, 2016. I started working at Le Best in 2016. We talked a little bit about Le Best in our first podcast. That's going to be the training facility, boarding facility. We do all the things. But anyway, I started working there in 2016. As I'm working there, I I was in high school. So I was in high school during the day. I would work at the Best at night. And I'm just a sponge. I'm gathering all this information because I knew at a very young age that I wanted to work with animals. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew me and animals were somehow going to be involved. So anyway, I'm also volunteering at Partners for Pets, which is a shelter in the area. So I'm working at Le Best for a few years. I started off just as like the front office position. And then I started shadowing Debbie over here. Private sessions, group classes, in-home sessions, and again, I am just taking in all of this information. So then in 2019 is when she's like, okay, you got this, you're ready to go. I started training, the group classes.
Group classes, yeah.
So I started doing that. I did that for about 2 years. Started taking on privates on my own gradually. She would come in and still shadow, because again, I'm young, I'm nervous. But it was great. And then I ended up moving to Atlanta in 2021. So I unfortunately had to leave. And I started there at a facility that actually didn't have a trainer. So I was the first trainer ever. She's super young, pregnant. So that was a lot. And so anyway, went to another facility, ended up actually going through training to get my certification. So I think I got certified in 2022 or 2023 as a certified pet professional dog trainer. So that was great. And then also my Canine Good Citizen evaluator. So I have both of those. Moved back to Illinois, 2024. Started working back at Le Best. So I kind of took over the training department. Of course, Debbie's still coming in. We're still doing privates in homes together, things like that. I took back training classes. So I absolutely love being back.
We're glad to have you back.
It's been great. I mean, this is home. I've known them since it was my first job ever. So that's about me. I love animals. I love what I do. I love what we do. We don't do the normal, what you'd see a normal trainer do. We look at literally every aspect of your dog, which is what we're about to talk about because the pet profile. And I mean, we're going to talk about that in just a second. But yeah, that's me. I mean, I love being here. I love diving into this stuff with you guys. So I'm excited.
So Jamie, if I can feed into a little bit of what you said.
Yeah, of course.
We are actually doing mental, physical, and emotional.
Right.
All of that ties into animal behavior. And that is actually my specialty, is animal behavior. So for me to be able to, help you along with that is absolutely awesome. You broke my heart when you left, but I'm thrilled that you're back. I knew you were going to be back.
She did. She's like, goodbye for now. I remember my mom had came into Le Best shortly after I left, and she was like, Debbie is just so heartbroken. And when you're young, you got to figure it out. And I mean, what job can you say that you start working at when you're 15 years old?
Yeah.
It's not that common, and the people ask me all the time, like, you really? Like,
your family.
It really,
Yes.
You are. It's a small business, and I love it. But one other thing was, before I left, I had made a video on TikTok, actually, with one of the dogs that we took in that was about to be put down, and our video went viral. I mean, it did like over 100,000, views. So that's what we're trying to get back up to with our TikTok page and everything. So you guys are if you're watching, you're going to really enjoy this podcast.
Yes, yes. So, what are we covering today?
So today, the first thing we're going to talk about is our pet profile, because that's really crucial for you guys to, if you want to be a part of the podcast, get some consultations in. We're going to talk about what that is. And then we're going to talk about some health impacts of our dogs, really dive into that, and really talk about what we can do to, lengthen the lifespan of our pets.
That's correct. So when we're talking about physical, mental, and emotional, we're talking about the whole rim of an animal. What impacts them, whether it's environment impacts them, or whether it's from the time that they're born till the time they go to their first home, how that impacts them, as well as the breeding aspect. Like a lot of characteristics in dogs makes a difference as to how they're going to respond to certain things.
Right.
So we're going to get into everything that pertains to a way a dog thinks, feels, and how they respond to things.
That's correct.
So we're going to do the pet profile first.
Yep.
So this is your first thing that you have to do. You have to fill this out. It's how many pages is it?
It's about 6 pages. It's about 6 pages long. So it is lengthy, but there's a reason for it being lengthy. And Debbie made this pet profile herself. And I know the first time I saw it, I was like, what in the world? But there's a reason behind it.
There is. So the reason why it's important for us to do a pet profile is so that we connect all the dots. Now, what that means is that let's say jumping is a problem. We'll just say that that's the problem. You don't like that. But what you don't realize is that jumping is a part of communications. And so if you have a dog that is jumping on you, the interpretation of what the dog thinks and the way the owner feels has a connection there. Well, there's other things that feed into that. And it could be the way they play with their other pet brothers, sisters, partners, within the group of the family. It could be the way that they play with children, So we need to gather, for us to fix issues, we have to gather all this information and connect the dots, connect what is bothering you versus the things that don't bother you. And so that's where this pet profile is really going to come in handy. Yes, it is pretty lengthy. But I truly believe that we should be giving you answers to fixing a problem, not a Band-Aid. Yes. And what I mean by that is that so many facilities, and this is nothing against the facility, by the way, but it does have to do with education. And the educational part of this is the fact that for you to be able to fix a problem, you have to see the whole picture.
Right.
And most people do not. Most people, they say, oh, your dog's jumping. Well, do this or do it that way. And then they try it and they find out it doesn't work. Or it works at the second, but the next time the dog does it again. So it's over and over and over, reproducing the same response with the same end results. And we want to be able to fix that. And the only way you can do that is by doing a full evaluation on your pets. So take the time out, fill out this pet profile. There's a couple things I want you to make sure that you do. When you're filling out a pet profile, you have to put down not just what the dog is doing. So let's say the dog's barking. You have to put down how you handle it, because the interpretation of how you're handling it is the interpretation that the dog understands. And that is where the communication of the issue becomes, is that you need to be able to put down how you're handling it. I'll give you another example. If you have your dog, we're going to go back to jumping. If you have your dog jump on you, and you pet it and you rub it and you say, oh, that's a good baby, because you don't mind the dog jumping on you. But then somebody else comes in and the dog jumps on them and they start pushing the dog away. Well, that's a misinterpretation of what the dog thinks he's supposed to do.
Right.
And this is where it becomes an issue. So this is where we're going to really do a deep dive into what's going on with your pet. So it's important that you tell us stories. We love stories. I don't care if you could send me back 10 pages
That's right.
of stuff, you know, but we want to hear the story behind it. So tell us a story. When you come to the door, when somebody comes to the door, the dog, runs and meets and greets and barks at the door. You grab the collar and you pull the dog back and you let the people in, and the dog starts jumping all over the people. So that is a story. But see, I told you about what I did with my dog. I pulled my dog back and I let the people in and I turned the dog loose and the dog started jumping on the people. So that tells us a lot about the interpretation of what the dog thinks and what you're actually doing.
Right.
So that's why it's important that when you're filling these out, that don't just put a check mark. Yeah, he barks. What was he barking at?
Right.
Okay. And then how do you handle it?
And that's different because a lot of people are going to just say, oh, your dog's jumping, do this. Okay, well, that didn't work. That trainer sucks. They go to the next one. So when you don't do that step, like we don't just tell you what to do.
Right.
We don't do that. A lot of people are like, really? Like, you can't just tell me? And I was doing that for a while until she pointed out to me, stop doing that, because if that doesn't work, they're going to think you don't know what you're doing. And we don't want to do that to you guys. We don't want to give you a little piece of what could possibly help and not know if it will actually help or not, because now you're doing something that really it was something else. So
it's like a guessing game.
Right.
When someone doesn't know the answer to a problem, they're going to guess. Now, sometimes that guess works. And sometimes that guess doesn't.
Right.
But when it doesn't, it's a reflection.
Right.
It's a reflection that falls back on us as professionals. And so we are not going to do that with you guys. We're going to make sure that what we say is there's a reason behind that. So it's not just do it this way. We're going to tell you why. And we're going to do it through the eyes of your dog. In other words, we're going to tell you the way the dog perceives to see it and why it has to change and what you have to do to make that change happen.
That's right. That's 100% right. So we are going to have this linked in the description. It's going to be so easy for you. You're just going to click on it. It's going to bring you to an automatic site where you just fill in your details, and then we'll get that automatically as soon as you're done. And then we'll call you. So really, really easy. And you guys can do this for anything. Like if you're struggling with barking at the window, fill it out. If you're dealing with aggression, fill it out. If you're dealing with separation anxiety, fill it out. I mean, we don't have, there's nothing that we cannot do. And that's what's amazing about, especially Debbie. She's dealt with anything you can think of. I don't think I've came across a situation where she tells me, oh, I don't know. No. So fill it out. We want to help you. Even if the problem is small, we want to be there for you guys. So fill out the pet profile and let's get to work on that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the environmental stuff. So let's go ahead and get that pulled up on the screen here. Wonderful. So we're going to talk about how water impacts your dog. I mean, we have dealt with this directly recently. A few dogs have actually passed away from just a very aggressive cancer. And Debbie asked them. And they're young. And they're young. And she asked them a few questions. And what was similar about all their stories?
Well, now I'm not saying that this causes all cancers, but it is affecting it. So when it comes to the common denominator for majority of these dogs has to do with their drinking water. It has to do with the water out of the tap. And if you guys are giving your dog water out of the tap, or you've had dogs in the past that have died from cancer because it ended up being something quite rapid, then think back what you were giving your dog water from, because that water, the minerals in that water, if you don't drink it, your dog shouldn't be drinking it. And we see a common, connection with majority of the people who have lost their dogs. I mean, one dog was like 2 or 3 years old.
Yep.
The average lifespan on some of these dogs that should be living a lot longer is 5, 6 years old.
Right.
I mean, this is way too young, So one of the things that I've always done with my dogs is I always gave them either bottled water or water from the refrigerator where it's filtered water. But when I gave them that filtered water, I also put in orange oil. When I got into Young Living, I have promoted putting orange oil in their water. It only takes a drop or two. It depends on how big of water container you have, but for like my little guys, I have little bowls and I put a drop or two in it. And that's it. And then I freeze it.
Right.
And when I freeze it, then that way they take in the fluids that they need, but they don't overdrink. And that's just really important because you don't want to affect the kidneys. And if they overdrink, they will affect the kidneys.
Okay.
And so we'll get a little bit into that a little bit later. But orange oil in the water, I had 5 of my test dogs. This started back around 2000. And those dogs were always on some type of filtered water. And a majority of them lived to be 18, 19 years old. I only had one, and I'm not for sure exactly what had really happened to him, but he started bleeding internally.
Oh.
And they really didn't know exactly but he was 13 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't necessarily cancer, so I'm not for sure exactly what that was. But the other 4 had lived to being, 18, 19 years old. So that's amazing.
That is.
Now, when it comes to lemon, as you see, the lemon oil is for when you're traveling. And this is where, if you, let's say, we live on the Illinois side, and let's say you've got friends that live in St. Louis, and you travel over to St. Louis, and you've got your puppy with you, and you give them tap water from their sink. Well, those minerals is totally throws off their digestive system, and your dog can end up with diarrhea or loose stools. Mm-hmm. And so if you use lemon oil in their water, or if you don't have lemon oil, you can use lemon juice. You can put a couple of drops of lemon juice into the water. What that does is neutralize. So I want you to go, now this is going to, oh, hi there. Sorry, Penelope needs to be in the middle of this. But anyway, this is years ago. So people that are more my age, you're going to remember some of these things. Your age, probably not. But when we traveled, the only place that you could stop off at was at a truck stop. And so at the truck stop, they would give you water with a lemon in it.
Yep.
And nowadays they'll ask you, would you like to have a lemon in your water? And there's a reason for that. Although at that time I didn't make sense. I thought, well, they're trying to just flavor the water, make their water taste better, But what it does is it neutralizes your fluid intake so that you don't have a reaction. So when you're traveling along the highway and you pull over to a truck stop and you drink their water, you could end up having loose stools or diarrhea at the time. That can cause you to have problems with your travel. Mm-hmm. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, I did not, of course, I learned this through the dogs. I did not learn this through just trial and error, but that is exactly what was going on.
Sorry, guys. I needed to get a drink of water so bad. Excuse me. We'll probably cut this part out. ASMR. So anyway, okay. Yeah, that is amazing. So orange oil, lemon oil. You can actually get these from Young Living. We'll still have that linked in the description, just like our video from last week. But okay, that's
There's
awesome.
only one more thing.
I was gonna say
Yes.
yes.
So if you notice that this dog's feeder is sitting up high, you want to use the brisket for a guide. But look at the far back leg, the front leg. You see how it bends from the joint down to the foot? So right there where that bends, that means that this dog, he's an older dog, and he was probably fed and watered on the floor.
And a lot of you guys are probably doing that too.
Yes. So we really want to show you that the other leg where it's straight up and down, that's a very strong leg. The other leg is a joint that's weakening because of the way the dog is eating and drinking. So I want you to take away from this is that it's so important for you to feed your dogs up high, for strong shoulders, straight legs. Puppies that are growing, their bones are soft, and by the time that they mature out, their bones are permanent. So if you want, a healthier pet long term, this is so the dog can jump on things, off of things, and their joints and their muscles are solid. It's very important to feed them up high.
And what should they do if they'll get a raised feeder, but actually raising it a little bit higher than the brisket, which is going to be that bone right here. If you have been feeding on the floor, will help them strengthen. So don't feel discouraged if you've been feeding them off of the floor for a long time. Get the raised feeder and just do a little bit higher than that brisket.
They have adjustable feeders.
Because now they're going to reach and they're going to strengthen those muscles back and hopefully start to straighten it out. And so they'll notice in the feet. Where else are they going to notice something physical with their dogs eating on the ground?
Well, the spine. If you look at this dog's spine, you see how it's arched, how it goes around.
Yep.
That arch, you'll notice that the shoulders will drop for lower than the hips.
Yep.
And when you see that, it throws the structure off in movement.
Right.
And that can cause all kinds of hip problems as well. So by feeding your dog up, it's going to keep it a level back, which is what you're wanting, excluding a few of those breeds.
Right.
Like your Bellington Terriers has a natural arch. Your Greyhounds have a natural arch. But a majority of your breeds have a level back. And so it's important to keep that back leveled.
That's right. All right, next slide. We are going to talk about... so this is just going back on just like the filtering system.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you can literally go to Walmart and just get, what is it called? What is the watering?
That you attach it to the faucet?
You could do the faucet.
And filter the water that way.
You can get one you could just put in your fridge, fill it up, do it that way if you don't have a refrigerator that does it for you. So that's just showing that. Okay. So air quality.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about that? I mean,
I hadn't until when we moved back to Illinois. We live in Wood River. I always lived in Glen Carbon, which is just a small town, but it's not near like a factory or anything. And when I moved to Wood River, I noticed that the air quality was a little bit different. The water is different. And that actually is a photo you'll see on your screen of what the plants look like in Wood River, which is 15 minutes down the road from where we're at right now.
Right.
But yeah.
So what happens is that the pollution that is being poured out, it changes the molecules within the air. And you'll notice like your cars will be dirty.
Yeah.
Quicker and easier. You can clean them, and a couple hours later, they're full of dust.
Right.
Well, how does this impact animals? So I had a customer many, many years ago. We used to do vinegar treatments, and we used to do baking soda soaks because her dog's feet were swollen all the time, and they were puffy, and the dog was losing its hair. And all of this, the place she lived, they would, and of course we found this out through the pet profiles.
Right.
Where she was living at, there was a factory that would put out this dust in the air, and that nobody bothered to wash their cars because you couldn't keep them clean.
She probably lived in Granite City or something.
I think it was more East Alton or Alton.
Okay.
Back around those areas.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, the manufacturing company closed.
Oh, okay.
And the swelling of the dog's feet went away through our treatments. And the coat came back. And the dog seemed healthier. He breathed easier. This was like a little Shih Tzu, and it was just amazing to see the transformation. We were trying to stay ahead of it, but we could never get it caught up. Like we could get the swelling to go down a little bit, but it never lasts.
Right.
Until this factory shut down. And they had no more dust, because that was the first thing I said. I said, do you not have any more dust on your cars? And she was like, no, come think of it, no. And it's like, this is why. So the environment, what your animals breathe in, is just as critical as what we breathe in ourselves as well. So location, environment. Now, let's take it to the inside, because it's not just where factories are. It also has to do with your products that you use inside your home.
Yes.
So aerosol sprays.
Yes.
Diffusers.
Mm-hmm.
Diffusers could be absolutely wonderful. Young Living, I put oils in my diffuser and put it out because everybody benefits from it.
Right.
Why? Because we're breathing that back in. But if you're using something that, like an air freshener that you plug in, and I'm not going to mention any particular products, but they plug this in and it lets off a type of smell. Well, we might think it smells good, but it may not be so healthy for your pet.
Right. And they're right down there breathing it all in.
Exactly.
Like you clean your floors, you mop your floors.
Exactly. The stuff you use to mop your floors.
And bleach, guys, stop using bleach on your floors, okay?
Yeah.
But you actually have a great cleaner right here, Thieves.
Yes.
They can use that for pretty much anything,
Yes. I use it for my laundry. I use it to mop my floors. I use it to clean off my countertops. I diffuse it in the air.
Yeah.
Because if you have issues with flu or colds all the time, if you just apply this within your daily lifestyle, you'll start to notice that you're not getting sick because of germs, because of what's out there. Even though you go out in the world and you run across people that might be sick or not feeling good or something like that, you will find that this will actually help you as well, by just doing this on a regular basis.
Right. I agree. So we have on here a bunch of different cleaners. I want you guys to research what's in them, and see what you're exposing your animals to, and even we have a candle up there because you talked about some diffusers, and you also have a fireplace. Tell us about that.
So the type of wood, if you have a general fireplace, gas fireplaces don't put out as much type of fumes, but if you're burning wood, the type of wood you put in there, that creates almost like a gas type response. And again, you're all taking that in. But a lot of things that happens with furnaces and with fireplaces has to do with drying the heat or drying the air out.
Yeah.
And causing your dogs to itch and scratch and chew at themselves. Now, you might think your dog has fleas, but that's not the case. It's more like the skin and the coat is dry, and so they're scratching for relief. So when you have situations like that, we do have, solutions for that as well. And those are things that we'll talk about more when we get into more of the grooming aspects
Right.
of your dogs. But there's things that you can do. You've got to make sure that if you're bathing your dog at home, that you're using a conditioner.
Yeah.
That's a major issue. You want to make sure that you have a conditioner that you're using on your pets, because what that does is it grounds the pet. If you ever touch an animal and get zapped, that is an animal that is lacking, conditioner to hold their moisture into them. They're too dry. Okay?
Yes, I agree. Let's see what else we're talking about. Oh, look at that. She's ahead of the game, guys. So conditioner, totally, you would think your dog wouldn't need conditioner. Like, I didn't even know about that till I went through her studies and stuff, but I mean, it's true.
Yeah, if they have static electricity, in other words, if you pet them and and their hair kind of stands up a little bit, that's static electricity. It's a dog that's lacking, we do water soaks and we do hot oil treatments in our facility. And so by applying those two things, absorbing the skin cells, so it absorbs the moisture, and then the hot oil treatment seals it and holds that moisture in, then that is what reduces the electricity that is actually feeding through your dog.
Right.
So they have less chances of them getting zapped, touching something. And, if you go, ooh, your dog jumps back and all he did was touch the refrigerator, with its nose. Well, that's because he's lacking conditioner. I mean, most people don't realize that. And a lot of people bathe their dogs, but they don't use a conditioner afterwards.
Yeah. You don't need a lot either. You just need a little bit, Awesome. I love that. Great. Okay. This is a lot, guys. I mean, fleas here, I would say they're more predictable than like in the South. They are really, really bad because, well, what a lot of people don't know about fleas is they don't ever really like die. They just lie dormant when it's cold outside. So we have a winter, but years when we don't have a winter, they're sleeping and up, and they're sleeping and they're up, blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of people are using things that they're thinking are helping these fleas, but they're really not, and they're really harmful, and they've killed dogs before. So anyway, before I get into it, so tell us a little bit about how you learned about this.
So years ago, we used to have extreme weather. In other words, when we had snow in this area, we had snow. I mean, it'd fill up half your house. It would be that deep. And our winters seem to be really long.
Yeah.
Well, we're not like that as much anymore.
Right.
So years ago when I was a kid, I was actually a teenager. And this guy brings us, I was grooming dogs, and this guy brings cats in. And it's like, oh, yeah, I groom cats, no biggie. But he's bringing it in January. And he's like, my cat's got fleas. I don't know where they came from. My cat never goes outside. Never. And it was like, well, that's, they don't really die off in the winter. But I had to learn it. And back then, they didn't have computers and things that you can look up immediately. So what I did was I took fleas off of his cat and I stuck them in baby jars. Now, I'm telling you guys something that could have got me in trouble years ago, but now I know better and I don't do this. But I took these jars, and my grooming shop was in my mom's basement, and she had a deep freezer in where the grooming shop was. Of course, you can't do that anymore either. But anyway, this is the way our life was. So anytime my mom would want anything, any kind of meat, she just, hey, bring me up a roast. Okay. So I thought, oh, I'll take these jars and I'll stick them with the fleas. I'll stick them in the freezer because I wanted to test it out myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to know why these fleas were not dead because it's wintertime, right? So I stuck them in the freezer, and 24 hours later, I pulled back out, and they start jumping all over the place. And so I stuck them back in the freezer. And I did this for almost 3 months, just checking. I thank God my mom never knew this.
Yeah. I would have freaked out.
She's already rolled in her graves many, many times because I tell this story all the time now. But anyway, almost 3 months, and finally they stopped moving. And I thought, wow, I must have killed them off. Starved them to death because their food substance is blood. And I took their food substance away. They never got any blood, So I was like, oh, this is it. This is what's causing, this is what it took, was the fact that I starved them. They could live up to 3 months without food.
Right.
All right. And then I find out later that an adult flea only lives 3 months. So I know. It was very heartbreaking when I found that out. Because I thought for sure I had this all figured out, right?
Right.
Well, no. So, but what I did learn from that is the fact that they're the hardiest when they're pre-adults.
Right.
And they will go to any kind of resource, even people,
right,
during their hardy season. Okay, now during that period of time, that's where they store. That's the reason why they could live that long with no food source in them, But during their adult stage, they lay thousands of eggs all over the place. But that's the reason why we always have a flea festation. And when it comes to, I don't know if we want to go into all the things about fleas. Yeah. Because it's a deep, deep subject.
It is. And we may, it's so many things because, this is something that we dedicate a full class to because it's just so much.
There's so much to learn.
So much to learn.
But when it comes to chemicals, and this is the thing I want to draw back to what we're talking about today. When it comes to chemicals, if you spray your yard with a chemical and it absorbs into a shell of the flea egg, then if that flea egg lives through that, then they are classified as contaminated.
Right.
And when they're contaminated and then they bite an animal, they put a serum into the animal that's actually almost like a poison.
Yep.
Into their skin when they're pulling the blood out. So that is where an animal becomes allergic to it. And they can be, it might take them 6 weeks to get rid of one contaminated flea bite.
Yep.
And that's what happened with one of my dogs. One of my dogs was highly allergic to fleas. It took one flea to bite her, and she would scratch and dig and chew.
That's my dog.
For 6 weeks.
Yep.
So I actually lived through that experience as well. So the thing is that you don't have to treat your yard with chemicals. You can use nematodes.
Nematodes, yeah. And we actually have a photo of that.
Do we have that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So you can use nematodes and you water your yard with it. And the best time to do that is in the spring. So we're going to be coming up over the next couple months. We're going to be coming up into our spring. That's the best time to put your nematodes out.
Yep.
But this is the cool thing.
This is cool.
Okay. This is really cool. Because when you use this during the rainy season, that's how it becomes active and it spreads out.
Yes, it does.
So you might do your yard, but you're actually taking care of the neighbors' yards as well. It expands out.
It's true. And you can't just go to the store and get nematodes. You have to go online and purchase it. It will be shipped to you in a cold box and you have to put it in the refrigerator. And this is not something you can, like I said, go to PetSmart and go buy. This is something that you probably never even heard about what nematodes are till right now.
Right.
And it really does work. I used it when I lived in an area where there's house right next to house, and the fleas are just horrible when you live in an area like that because can't treat everybody's yards, but in a situation like this, you kind of can because you just water it. Got to be careful though. Wear long clothing when you use this stuff.
The experience I had with it. So I'm used to having on my rental properties, I'm used to having, someone go out and spray all the yards, right? Well, Holly's like, hey, you got these nematodes and you got to use them up right away. And they've already been in the refrigerator for a week. Oh my gosh. So I take them home and I water the yard with it, just like it all says, to do. And then I go in and I take a shower. And they start biting me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
It makes my skin crawl every time she tells me this.
I'm scrubbing as fast as I can because I'm getting all these little bites all over me, not realizing that this was, firing back at me while I was watering the yard. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're covered well.
Yeah, and luckily I didn't have to learn that myself. Debbie told me about this story before I used them myself. And it's amazing. One thing I wanted to touch on the really quick about the flea sprays. I used it was a natural flea spray when I lived in Atlanta, and it said natural, right? It had peppermint on there. It had all these oils on there. I'm like, perfect, because I already knew not to use this stuff, but I was like, man, I really need something that I can, put on my dog that I can spray. But even that, I didn't notice there was an ingredient in there. My dog. I would just did a little bit more research, right? It said natural on there, but it wasn't really natural. My dog could not walk.
Oh my God.
I don't even think I told you about this.
No.
It was actually Yuri. She had gotten bitten by a flea. She's super allergic. She will scratch until she bleeds. That's how bad it is.
Oh, wow.
If she gets bit by just one or two fleas, she will scratch until she bleeds. So she had I think this is why it happened, but she had a little scab. Anyway, I gave her the medicine and stuff, and she could not walk. Seriously.
Oh, Lord.
She could not walk. I was freaking out. I took her to the vet. She ended up being okay. But, I mean, this stuff can...
It was toxic.
It's toxic. And even though it says natural on there, it really wasn't natural. So, I mean, we have two things up here that could help, but do the nematodes, be preventative, get ahead of the game, and
not only that, but you only have to do it once every 2 or 3 years.
And
you don't do it all the time.
Then like the pesticide you'd spray your yard with, and you have to keep doing it, and it doesn't kill those eggs. It doesn't. So this kills the egg, the adult flea, the larvae, everything. And it's
pre-adult anything, and it spreads out. But that's the reason why they don't want you to do it every year or every so many months, is because you can throw off the balance of nature. Okay, it's important for us to have fleas. That's what helps us with the, animals in the world, that runs, wild. So there's a certain purpose of fleas being there.
Right.
But that's not something we want to be living with our own pets.
Correct.
So nematodes is really important to be able to use. But the cool thing is you only have to do it once every 2 or 3 years. And this is what we do around all of our business ourselves.
Yep.
So we literally protect our customers from not worrying about whether they bring their dogs in for doggy daycare or they're staying with us, that that their dogs are going to get fleas and take them home.
Yeah, we've never, ever had a complaint like that.
Right.
We have Burer's
yeast.
And that's going to be a supplement you can give your dog every day. And it has garlic in it. And so garlic is a natural repellent for fleas.
Right.
And so when you get that in their system, it will come out of their pores and it will kind of like a vampire. Garlic, no, we don't like that. And then peppermint oil. And peppermint oil is safe for your dogs. You know, a lot of people are skeptical about peppermint oil on their dogs, but it is safe. And
oh yeah, you can just pet them.
Yeah,
just put it in your hands and just pet them, and it will go down the hair shafts down into their skin. So
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you don't need to go out and buy all these expensive things.
Did you know that the garlic actually helps prevent animals from having heartworms?
No.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. Well, garlic is a preventative Okay, so it repels. So it's going to repel mosquitoes.
That makes so much sense.
Just like it repels fleas.
Yeah.
So it takes a mosquito to bite.
Yeah.
That causes your heartworm problems.
It makes sense. And that's the thing. These things make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and unfortunately, it's just not taught. So that's what we're here for, guys. We're here to teach you these things. These things, you buy them once, they're going to last you so long.
Right.
The cost of, you don't have to get this every month. You don't have to get a nematode every single month in your yard. You don't have to buy a bottle of peppermint every month like you have to do with these flea medications, oral or topical treatments. So anyway, that's from fleas. We're probably going to talk more about fleas when we talk about grooming. So let's go ahead and get to the next slide here. Oh, that is the end of it. Okay, wonderful. So, you would not think about how all of these things directly impact your pet's life. You think about, I need to feed him good food. You think about, I need to give him water every day. Think about how you need to walk him, but you don't think about raising the food bowl. You don't think about, I'm going to mom's house this weekend with Charlie. I need to bring my lemon oil so he doesn't get an upset stomach.
Right.
So I think it's amazing the things that I've learned, and they work, and the flea thing, y'all, I've had so many problems with fleas living in apartments and things like that. And when I follow these regimens, I'm not even joking. It really does help. And I want my dogs to live forever,
Yeah. And the less chemicals, the longer their life is.
That's true. And same for us. It's only going to help us too, because we don't see, I feel like they are showing us what's happening inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't see it yet.
Yes.
But it affects them quicker than it does to us. So I think it was a great idea for us to talk about this on the podcast.
I agree.
So awesome. Well, anything else you want to talk about, or?
Well, I could talk all day long.
She can. She really can.
But I think it might be best to give our audience a break to the ear.
Well, next podcast, we are going to be talking about puppies. Who doesn't love to talk about puppies? So tune in. We're going to talk about anything puppy we're talking about next week. So tune into that. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and comment if you want to hear something specific for us to talk about, and fill out that pet profile. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.